Hello everyone, this is Just a Dad. I'm going to do a detailed review on this Bunn coffee maker. It's the Brew Velocity Tin Cup coffee maker, model number NHSB. So this one's been out for a while. Now, Bunn coffee makers are a little different than normal coffee makers. So to start off, you've got this coffee pot. Now this does have a warming plate, and it does have a filter basket. And the filters, so this is a 10 cup. Most coffee makers that look like this are 12 cup, but this one's only 10 cups. So let's start off with coffee filters. Bunn makes their own coffee filters, and they're taller. So here I have a standard 8 to 12 cup coffee filter, and it is not as tall. These are specific for Bunn. You have to use their coffee filters because you need that extra height, or the coffee grounds could run over. So we've got this switch. So this switch on the front is just for the warming plate. So when I turn this switch on, it only turns on this warming plate. It doesn't turn the coffee maker on. It's got another switch for that. Okay, so this is the switch. I had to put these labels on, because the 0 is off and that is on. When you can see the red, that means it's on. So the line means it's on. It's probably a good idea to put these labels. I don't understand why they ever put a switch sideways. You don't know which way is on or off. And they should have at least labeled it or made it light up when it was on. Okay, so let me explain this switch on the side. This is what turns the coffee maker on, but you got to leave this switch on. So there's a water tank inside here that we're going to fill up with water. And when we turn this switch on, it keeps this water tank hot all the time, even when you're not brewing a cup of coffee. So that's why these Bunn coffee makers people like them so much, is because they call them like speed brews. It can brew a full pot of coffee in about 4 minutes. And the way it can do that is, so this water is being kept hot all the time, and when you put your water in the top, it just pushes out the hot water into the brew basket to brew you some coffee, and then that cold water will fill the tank now, and it's going to heat it up. It takes about 15 minutes to heat it up. So once you turn this switch on for the first time, it's going to take about 15 minutes to heat that water up inside this tank. That's why there's a process of filling this tank. There's a little bit to a Bunn coffee maker. It's not a simple pour it in and it percolates out. This has a holding tank that is kept warm all the time. And that's what this switch is. So some people call this a vacation switch. So the only time you're going to turn this switch off is if you go on vacation, or if you're not going to brew a pot of coffee for about a week. After about a week, 5 days maybe, 5 days is probably the most I would leave it on. So after about 5 days, you're going to want to turn this switch off, because what can happen is leaving this on and you're not brewing any coffee, this water will eventually evaporate out of here, and you'll empty the tank, and if the switch is on, it could burn up that heating element. Now, people that have Bunn coffee makers, you kind of get used to this switch, but people that don't know these coffee makers will be confused by this switch. The switch on the front now is only for the warming plate. And so you got to remember to turn that switch off every time you're done with your coffee. But you're going to leave this switch on. Okay, so let's pretend like we're setting it up for the first time, which you may be if you bought it, because it doesn't take long for this water to evaporate out of this tank in the back. So we're going to pretend like this tank in the back is empty. We're going to make sure there's no filter, no coffee in the funnel. Okay, so I filled the coffee pot up. I've still got all the switches are off. We're just simply going to be running water through it to fill that tank up. So we're going to open this. We're going to dump the water in. This thing doesn't pour the best. Yeah, Bunn redesigned this coffee pot because I don't think it pours the best. Their newer coffee makers have a nicer coffee pot. All right, so we're going to leave the lid open. We've poured all that water in. Now we're going to put the coffee pot underneath there. And then we're going to close the lid. So it says we got to wait 4 minutes. So what's happening is when I close that lid, water is going back here into this tank. It's going to fill this tank up first. So that's what the first process we're going to do. We're going to fill the tank up here in the back. So we're going to wait 4 minutes. Okay, so it's been 4 minutes and we don't have any. What we're wanting is, so everything's off still. We're wanting water to come through the coffee maker and start dripping out. So we're going to repeat the process until we get water coming out of the funnel basket. Okay, so I'm going to pour some more water in. I'm going to put this underneath there and I'm going to close the lid. And I'm going to wait another 4 minutes. What I'm wanting to see is just fresh water starting to come out of here. So Bunn coffee makers have a little bit of a setup process. This is a little different than a normal coffee maker. There's no setup with a normal coffee maker. You just pour the water in, it heats it, and you get your coffee out. So there's a few extra steps with Bunn, but it's worth it because of the speed at which the coffee brews. Okay, so we're starting to get just some water dripping out. That means our reservoir in the back is full. Now I'm just going to let this completely stop dripping. You know, it may fill it up to the 4 or the 6 or whatever. But that's going to let me know that there's no more water in this top part. And my reservoir is full. Once I get that full, I can turn the switch on. This is going to turn the heating element on. What you don't want is you don't want this switch on if there's no water back here. Because that heating element will burn up. There's nothing to turn it off if there's no water in there. And that's why they call it like the vacation switch. Because if you leave on vacation for more than a week, or if you're just gone, since that water's being kept warm back there, it can boil away eventually. It takes about 3 or 4 days, but eventually all that water in there will go away and the heating element will be on with no water. So that's why you've got to remember to turn this switch off. But make sure you leave it on while you're home and brewing coffee every day. You're going to leave this on overnight. You know, I've been home for a couple months now, and it just stays on all the time because I fix a new pot of coffee every morning. We're going to leave this switch on because we're still doing the setup process. So eventually this will stop running water. So once this water stops running out, see, I've got the switch on. That's good because I know there's water in the tank. Once water stops running out, I've got to wait 15 minutes. It's going to take 15 minutes for that water in the back to heat up. Then I can brew my first pot of coffee. So when you first get these out, you know, it's going to take you about 25, 30 minutes to kind of get everything set up, ready to go before you can brew your first pot of coffee. Okay, so that took about, like I said, 10 minutes. It's finally stopped dripping. That means there's no more water up here. I've got the lid closed and it's filled the tank in the back. So I can dump this out. I've got the switch on and I have to wait 15 minutes. So after 15 minutes, I'm going to brew a pot of coffee. So in the meantime, this is Bunn's newer coffee maker. This is their newer coffee pot. It pours a lot better. It's got this little different thing on it, but this is the same thing. It's got the switch in the back. Looks a little different. These are $100. Again, this switch is only for the warmer, and that's where you pour the water. And it doesn't let the water go in until that plunger is depressed when you close the lid. Okay, so during this 15 minutes, you can hear the reservoir back here boiling that water, getting that water ready to go. So you kind of want to make sure that that's kind of done. That lets you know that it's up to temperature, which should take about 15 minutes. Yeah, you can kind of hear it getting the water ready back here in the tank. Okay, so it's been the 15 minutes. I'm ready to brew a pot of coffee. Here's the brewing chart. So it's about 1 tablespoon per cup. So I use about 10 tablespoons for 10 cups. You could go all the way up to 11 tablespoons. So we're going to pull the filter basket out. And like I said, we're going to get our Bunn coffee filter. So most coffee makers don't come with filters. Make sure you get some filters when you get a new coffee maker. So you can see how this filter sits up higher in this basket. So you can use any coffee ground you want. And this, like I said, this is 1 tablespoon. And I'm going to put 10 of these in here. Okay, so I've got the coffee grounds in there. I'm going to put the filter basket up. This one just slides in. You got to kind of find the track, and it slides in and stays. So then we're going to fill this up with up to the 10 mark with fresh water. Okay, so I've got it filled up to the 10 mark. We're going to open up the lid, and we're going to pour our water in. This one doesn't pour the best, so I'm going to open up this black part and pour it like this. So these things start brewing almost as soon as you put the water in. So as soon as you close the lid, it's going to allow the water to displace that water that's hot. You know, this doesn't get very hot, but it's going to displace that water, and then it's going to brew your pot of coffee. So these things can brew a pot of coffee, I think, in about 4 minutes. That's what my one over there does. So we're going to time this and see how long this one takes. But like I said, it's starting to brew. And we got to remember to turn this switch on. So it is lit, and that's just for the warming plate. So when you pour your water in, turn your switch on, and it starts brewing. One thing, so yeah, the warming plate's not automatic. So that's the thing about Bunn coffee makers. You know, there's really nothing automatic about them. They just brew coffee really quick. But like when I'm done with coffee, I gotta remember to turn this off. Otherwise it'll boil off the coffee and it'll burn the coffee in the bottom of there. So a couple things you gotta know about Bunn coffee makers. They do make a good pot of coffee though. My dad has had one of these since I think the 70s or 80s. I don't know exactly when they started making them, but he kind of swears by these Bunn, and so I got one. I really like it. It's kind of for people that drink a lot of coffee and they want it quick. So the reason I like it is because in the morning I can brew my fresh pot of coffee, and in 4 minutes I'm walking out the door with I've got kind of a big thermos I take with me, and it's full of coffee. And then I just turn the switch on. And you know, and Bunn coffee makers are a little bit more expensive than a normal coffee maker. You can get some pretty decent Mr. Coffee makers that do the percolator action that take about 12 to 14 minutes. You know, you can get a good one of those for about 30, 20 bucks. So, and these are typically around 100 or even more. So, but they do last a while if you keep up on the cleaning. I'm going to do a separate video on just how to clean, descale a Bunn coffee maker. You need to do this on a regular basis because its heating element's working all the time. So it's really going to build up scale and lime deposits on it. So about every 2 to 3 months, you're going to want to run some white vinegar through it. And I'm going to do a separate video on how to do that. Okay, so it's been about 2 minutes, almost 3 minutes, and we're almost to the 5 cup mark. So you can see these are just, and you don't have that percolator sound. It's just coffee brewing. It's just that hot water that's already hot being passed over the coffee grounds and brewing your pot of coffee. You can do smaller amounts. So the minimum amount you can do is a 4 cup. So you would just put, like, if you wanted to do, say, a 6 cup or 6 cup pot of coffee, you would just put 6 tablespoons of coffee in the filter basket, and then you would just fill this up to the 6 mark. And when you poured it in, it's only going to brew 6 cups out. And you can do that anywhere along here. I just always do 10 because it's always simple. I waste maybe about 1 or 2 cups, but you can brew any amount in here up to 10. 4 is the minimum though. So one feature you don't get with Bunn coffee makers is pause brewing. So like on a Mr. Coffee, this is pretty standard with Black & Decker, kind of all the cheaper coffee pots. When it's up to about the halfway, you can pull the coffee pot out, get you a cup of coffee, and put it back. It's got a little plunger that stops the water from coming out, but Bunns do not have that. You need to let it brew the whole pot of coffee. Otherwise, it's just going to be pouring coffee out. When I'm in a hurry, once in a while, I'll put a cup underneath there and grab me a quick, pour me a quick cup. But then, you know, so just keep in mind, it doesn't have pause brewing. But again, they just don't take a long time to brew. So one thing I did buy, so Bunn makes this water reservoir that you can fill up, and for 10 cup coffee makers, it's to right there. So these are real nice. They're like 20 bucks. But my dad had one and I wanted one, and it's just easier. Instead of using the coffee pot, these pour real nice. They're easy to fill up under the sink, and then you just pour your water in using it. These are just nice to have. It is something extra you got on your counter, but like I said, I enjoy having it. Okay, so it's been about 5 minutes, and we'll never quite get to the 10 cup mark because you lose a little bit of water in the heating process. But and what you're hearing now is, so that water that I put in there, it's being heated up. So say I used all this coffee real quick, I couldn't brew another pot of coffee for another 15 minutes because that's how long it takes for that water in there to get hot. But this should last me. And then, so it's ready to go. And it should be done dripping. It's got just a little bit left to go. Okay, so it's done. Let's get ourselves a cup of coffee. If you take your time, this one pours okay. Well, no, I made a mess again. Okay, so let's check the temperature of that. Yeah, that's a really nice cup of coffee, 161. This is an older one. I have seen them when they're new, they put out about 165. So I like a little bit of cream and sugar in my coffee, but this is a cup of black coffee, and it tastes, you know, it tastes really good. It does make a good cup of coffee. So let's take a look at the coffee grounds in here. So you can see, now keep in mind it is going to drip because it doesn't have that plunger, but I'm going to set it right there. So it does a pretty good job with the coffee grounds. They don't come up too high in the filter basket. It gets them all pretty saturated. Now if you live in a higher elevation, Bunn will send you a different spray nozzle. You know, I live here in central United States, so it works fine, but I think high altitude, you can just unscrew that. And it's really hot right now, but you should unscrew that once in a while just to make sure it's clean. But Bunn will send you a high altitude spray nozzle if yours isn't flowing just right. I'm not sure how to know if it's flowing right or not, but they will send you one if you live in like Denver. Okay, so let's say I'm done with my coffee. Say I drank all this. The only switch I'm going to turn off, I'm going to turn this off. This turns the warming plate off. I'm going to leave this switch on. I know it's not what we're used to, but people that have Bunn coffee makers kind of get used to this. But like I said, leave that switch on, and it's ready to go for the next time. And you may hear the water heating up in here once in a while, like you're watching TV in the middle of the night and you'll hear this thing kind of start bubbling, and it's just making sure the water is hot because it doesn't know when you're going to brew the pot of coffee. So that water is always hot, ready to go. These are very simple coffee makers. Let's go over cleanup now. So cleanup's very simple. You're just going to want to wipe the burner plate off once in a while. It does get a few drips, but it's got like a non-stick surface. There's not really much. You can take this lid off and kind of clean inside where the water goes. So the 3 parts, this is the filter basket. I just rinse mine out, and about every 3rd time I'll put it in the dishwasher on the top rack. This one's kind of nice. You can take the lid off. All 3 of these parts are dishwasher safe, and you can get your hand in here and kind of scrub on if you have to. So this was my detailed review on the Bunn coffee maker. I've also got I did another review on the other Bunn coffee maker. I did a detailed review on, this is the coffee maker I use every day. So I hope you liked this video. If you could, please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.